Hey guys, it's almost time to grab your Flex Fit blacked out hat, very limited, and also the blacked out sweater, really comfy. I love it. Just a few more days and you can grab your own. Hey, what's going on guys? Welcome back to another video. We have some breaking news today. It seems that Bob Iger is now back at Disney as the CEO. And if you didn't know, we had Bob Chapek for a while during the pandemic, and I felt like he was absolutely horrible for the company. I think he was just as bad as Kathleen Kennedy is for Star Wars. Now, if you don't know much about Bob Iger, I'll give you a brief explanation. This is just what I've learned from his autobiography, and he was the one who was very close with George. He pitched the idea of George selling Lucasfilm to Disney back way before they actually sold it in 2012. Before Lucasfilm sold to Disney in 2012. He first worked at ABC, right? He's had a long, illustrious career. He's obviously a very intelligent man, and he's done a lot for the company. However, when it comes to Star Wars and for George, he worked at ABC, and George had this show called The Young Indiana Jones Show. It was kind of like a history lesson with Indiana Jones. And the first season was okay, it didn't do too great. They didn't want to greenlight it for another season, but George really wanted it. He really wanted a second season, and Bob Iger really went to bat for him with the board of directors, and they made it happen just because of Bob pushing, because he was tight with George. And so when it came time for Bob having his eyes on Lucasfilm, he closed Disney down one day, Disneyland down one day, and had George over for lunch. And he said they were talking and stuff, and he was just, kind of being the emperor, essentially, is how I saw that when I was reading his book. And he said something along the lines of, hey, George, you don't have any heirs. What happens to you? What happens to Lucasfilm when you die? You're getting old. Who's going to take over? George said, yeah, well, you know what? If I ever come down to the point of selling, I remember what you did for me with the Young Indiana Jones show, and I would never sell to anybody else but Disney. So there you go. Bob's good deed back in the day, 20-something years prior, came a long way, and is one of the main influential reasons, I believe, that Lucasfilm was sold to Disney, because of Bob Iger and his connection with George. Now, I didn't really like the way he put it, what happens to Lucasfilm when you croak, essentially. But look, this guy takes companies, and obviously he is, don't let the nice smile fool you. He is a go-getter. This guy is a monster in a suit. Not in a bad way, but he closes deals, and that is the point. So Disney, in a shocking late Sunday announcement, said it had reappointed Iger as chief executive, effective immediately after Iger's handpicked successor as CEO, Bob Chapek, came under fire for his management of the entertainment giant. It is with an incredible sense of gratitude and humility, and I must admit a bit of amazement, that I write to you this evening with the news that I am returning to the Walt Disney Company as chief executive officer. Iger wrote to employees in an email which was obtained by CNBC. The dramatic upheaval comes 11 months after Iger left Disney, and days after Chapek said he planned to cut costs at the company, which had been burdened by swelling costs at its streaming service Disney+. Earlier this month, the company's earnings vastly underperformed Wall Street's expectations. Even its theme park business, which reported a surge in revenue, delivered less than analysts had projected. Iger's return also comes as legacy media companies contend with a rapidly shifting landscape as ad dollars dry up and consumers increasingly cut off their cable subscriptions in favor of streaming. Iger will help the company's board develop a new successor, Disney said in a release. Chapek was named chief executive in February of 2020, succeeding Iger, who had previously said he wouldn't return to the role. And here he is. The emperor has returned. Shares of Disney has fallen about 41% so far this year. As of Friday's close, the stock hit a 52-week low November 9th. Iger has signed on to work as CEO for 2 years, Disney said Sunday, with a mandate from the board to set the strategic direction for renewed growth and to work closely with the board in developing a successor to lead the company at the completion of his term. The company said Chapek stepped down soon after Chapek took over in 2020. Rona became a pandemic and forced the shutdown of Disney's theme parks and prevented it for a time from releasing movies in theaters. Nevertheless, the company's stock soared in 2021 before crashing down to earth in recent months. And I have only Disney Plus to blame for that. The absolute horrifying shows that they have released, She-Hulk, Boba Fett, Obi-Wan Kenobi, just to name a few. They're two biggest franchises that they have, Marvel and Star Wars, and they are royally destroying it. They're destroying my favorite characters that I have grown up with, that have got me through life. to put it plainly without going into detail. So I think a lot of this has been Kathleen Kennedy's problem. I think she is the wrong person to be handling Lucasfilm. I think she has got to go. Her whole rhetoric about hiring only females, which means that she's not looking for the right person to work for the job. She's just looking for a person's gender. And I don't think that really ever, if she had said we're only looking for males for this role, we just want to hire males going forwards, I would question that. And I would say, well, why don't we just hire whoever's best for the job? I think that would possibly be a little more conducive to your overall theme of telling the story of Star Wars. And we've seen many different articles and interviews with her where she's saying, I have guys all the time telling me they're such big Star Wars fans and they want to write and direct for Star Wars. And I just really want, women to be leading, blah, 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 blah. And while that's great, I think there should be an equal opportunity in the workforce. I think it should be given to the person who has the best credentials, the person who has the best story, the best ideas, the best creativity, whether that be a man or woman, and less more so about what gender you are. So I would say with Bob Iger coming back, I think he's better than Bob Chapek. I think he's better than Kathleen Kennedy, but at the same time, he was in charge when we got the sequel trilogy. So really, are they great? So really, are any of them great at all? No, I don't think any of them really know what they're doing when it comes to Star Wars. Marvel, I don't really got a clue what's going on over there. So, you can have Josh tell you about that, or any, other Marvel head. But for me, Star Wars is my bread and butter. I know it back and front, and I don't think that they really are handling it properly at all. If you even look at Andor is very nicely shot, very nicely produced, very nicely acted, but it's not doing good numbers. What do you want me to say? The show can be amazing, but at the same time, it is not performing the way they had hoped. It's not hitting the same numbers as Obi-Wan Kenobi, as Book of Boba Fett, and that's because those are legendary characters. But even those shows were handled poorly, written poorly, and really they effed up in a lot of different cases, which I can go on about in many different videos, which we can do at another time, or we can do on Nerd Theory every Monday at 5 o'clock Pacific. We thank Bob Chapek for his service to Disney over his long career, including navigating the company through the unprecedented challenges of the pandemic, says Susan Arnold, Disney's board chair. She will remain in that role. Chapek, whose contract as CEO was extended earlier this year, planned a hiring freeze, cost cuts, and layoffs across the company, according to a memo CNBC obtained earlier this month. The internal memo came 3 days after the company's poor quarterly earnings report. Iger, who held the CEO role for 15 years at Disney, had favored Chapek as his successor. The two ultimately had a falling out, and their conflict cast a shadow over the company's future. Chapek distanced himself from Iger with a series of decisions, including his new approach to streaming prices for Disney+, Hulu, and ESPN. Iger is a widely respected and liked figure at Disney. He oversaw its deals to acquire Pixar, Lucasfilm, and its Star Wars properties, and Marvel, all of which have become multi-billion-dollar intellectual property behemoths. So okay, look, I think Bob Iger is definitely a better choice than Bob Chapek. I wasn't a fan. I feel like Star Wars has gone even worse into the dumps since Chapek has been in charge, but really that's not saying much after the sequel trilogy, in my opinion. So with Bob Iger and Kathleen Kennedy around, I don't really think anything's going to be different, that great. With Bob Chapek out of the picture, I think that's at least a start. It's a step in the right direction, but it's a different direct. We're sidestepping, or are we going forwards? Are we going back? What are we doing? So I don't really know. Time will tell at this point. Hopefully Bob Iger has learned a little bit about what fans are looking forwards to with Star Wars, and he can see that just by the plummeting numbers that has happened to Disney in regards to their stocks, which is 41% down. Like I've always said, I think as long as we have Kathleen Kennedy in-house at Lucasfilm, we are doomed. And as long as we have Dave Filoni working on projects and animated films, we are saved. So it's kind of like this push-pull that's going on. And we know that Kathleen is the emperor. She has the power over at Lucasfilm. And Dave is kind of like Vader. He has his full reign over there. He has his abilities and his powers. But at the end of the day, whatever the emperor wants, the emperor gets. So that's unfortunate, I think in order to go forwards for Star Wars, we need Dave to take a higher position. I think we need Kathleen Kennedy to take a lower position or just get out of there entirely. I don't think she's handling the franchise very well. She may be a very nice lady, and I'm not questioning that at all. However, I am questioning her ability to lead this particular franchise. When it comes to producing, I think she's done a phenomenal job with many films, and there's no question in regarding her overall career and her abilities. But when it comes to Star Wars, we need someone really special, really with it, and really understanding of what came before it. And I don't think any of the people so far have really been respectful of that. I think they've more so wanted to take this franchise and mold it into their own little agenda-driven puppet. And I'm really not for it. At the end of the day, I want you guys to know that I'm with you guys. I'm with the fans. I am a fan, and I don't like the direction Star Wars is going in right now. I don't think the overall management of Star Wars is in a very good place. I don't think it's been in a good place since George sold it. You know, when George sold his sequel trilogy script to Bob Iger, who said he was going to look over everything and potentially use everything going forwards, he never did, and he kind of tricked George in that sense. And we know that George is very hurt. We know he's not happy with what they're doing. In my opinion, not in lieu of his story that he built for over 40 years. And I know a lot of us feel that way. And look, numbers don't lie. Disney is down 41%. A lot of the shows aren't performing like they should, like they hope. Star Wars is a behemoth of a franchise, of a IP, and it should be just crushing. Every single show should be doing well, but they're making L takes. They paid $4 billion for it. You can build upon it with the characters that have already been there. Make some new characters around these already established ones, sure. And if you want to create a spin-off on them, go ahead and do that. However, don't focus on these characters and put the spotlight on them while completely ignoring the ones who came before, who have really made this franchise what it is today. Case in point, Luke Skywalker and Rey. I think going forwards, it's very salvageable. I think they can fix things. Look at Tales of the Jedi, for example. Phenomenal. Literally as if George Lucas had created it. And that's because Dave Filoni made it. And I think Dave Filoni is the answer we are looking for as Star Wars fans. And I really trust in his overall vision as a fan. And I think we will be in good hands as long as he is at Lucasfilm. And hopefully he will get some more power. Anyways, I want to know what you guys think about this Bob Iger returning. Did you like Bob Iger more than Bob Chapek? Or was it the other way around? Do you want Kathleen Kennedy to remain at Lucasfilm for another few years? Or do you want her out of there? Why? Why not? Explain and be respectful to each other in the comments. Thanks for watching today's video. I hope you have a fantastic day wherever you are watching this in the universe. And I will see you all in the next video on Star Wars Theory. Until then, remember, the Force will be with you always.